A fairy tale wedding. A bride in white. A groom with a secret. When Daniel's phone rang during the first dance, a woman's voice accidentally broadcast to every guest. "You told me this was just for the inheritance money. Call me when you ditch her." The music stopped. The bride walked to the phone, calm as glass, and asked one question that made the entire room hold its breath. But the real bombshell wasn't the betrayal. It was a dead grandmother's final surprise, a test that Daniel had already failed, and a fortune he never knew he'd lost. The sky over the vineyard was a watercolor of peach and lavender. 100 white roses lined the aisle, and fairy lights twinkled like captured stars in the ancient oak trees. Natalie clutched her father's arm, her heart full enough to burst. At the altar, Daniel stood in a tailored navy suit, his smile so genuine, it made her forget every lonely year that had come before him. 18 months ago, she'd met him at a charity gala, a self-made entrepreneur with an easy laugh and a habit of remembering the smallest details. When her grandmother was dying, Daniel had been there, reading aloud from the old woman's leather journals, bringing chamomile tea, holding Natalie through the grief. A man of genuine character, her grandmother had whispered once, patting Daniel's hand. Natalie had taken that as a blessing. Now, as they swayed under the canopy to a string quartet's rendition of their song, Natalie rested her head against Daniel's chest. The day was perfect. The night was magic. And then, from the head table, a persistent buzzing cut through the melody. It was Daniel's phone. He'd left it beside his champagne flute, screen glowing. The groomsman nearest the table, a burly college friend named Pete, picked it up with a frown. The caller ID read, Meredith. Pete declined the call. It buzzed again, and again. On the fourth ring, Pete fumbled to silence it, accidentally hitting the speaker button, just as the call connected. A woman's voice, sharp and impatient, blasted through the phone's speaker and into the quieting tent. "Daniel, you said you'd call as soon as it was done. Is she crying yet? I can't believe you actually went through with it. You told me this was just for the inheritance money. Call me when you ditch her." The string quartet faltered. The murmuring crowd went stone silent. 120 guests turned toward the head table, champagne glasses frozen midair. Daniel's face drained of color. His hand slipped from Natalie's waist. Natalie stood alone in the center of the dance floor, her white gown suddenly feeling like a costume. For 3 heartbeats, she didn't move. Then, with a calm that surprised even herself, she walked to the table. Her heels clicked on the wooden planks. The phone was still connected. She could hear the woman, Meredith, breathing on the other end, waiting. Natalie lifted the phone to her lips. Her voice was steady as stone. "He'll call you in a few minutes. He just needs to hear something first." She ended the call and turned to face her husband. Daniel's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Sweat beaded at his temples. "Natalie, I can explain. She's lying. It's not what you think." She held up one hand. The room held its breath. Even the crickets seemed to pause. "The inheritance from my dead grandmother," Natalie said, each word a perfectly placed dagger. "The one you visited twice a week. The one you told you loved her journals." Her voice rose just slightly, cracking at the edges. "Did you marry me for that?" Daniel didn't answer. His silence told her everything. Now what happened next is the part nobody saw coming. Because Natalie's grandmother, Eleanor Vance, was many things. A collector of rare books, a lover of stray cats, and a woman whose intuition was sharper than a lawyer's contract. In the final weeks of her life, she'd watched Daniel with a quiet, penetrating gaze. He'd been too eager, too quick with his kindness. She'd seen his eyes flicker toward the antique jewelry box on her dresser one too many times. And so, 3 days before she died, Eleanor had called her attorney and added a secret codicil to her will. The codicil stated this: if Natalie marries, the entire fortune, $14 million, the estate, the vineyards, will be held in trust for 10 years, during which time Natalie and her spouse will receive only a modest living allowance. At the end of that decade, the money will be released in full, provided that Natalie's husband is determined by a panel of 3 independent arbitrators to be a man of genuine character. If the marriage dissolves before 10 years due to infidelity, abandonment, or proof of mercenary intent, the entire inheritance is donated permanently to the Whiskers and Purrs Cat Sanctuary in Cornwall. Eleanor had never mentioned this to Natalie. She'd simply left a sealed letter with the family lawyer to be opened on Natalie's wedding night, or earlier, if circumstances warranted. As the wedding guests sat paralyzed, a silver-haired man in a gray suit rose from a table near the back. It was Mr. Pembroke, the estate attorney. He cleared his throat, holding a cream envelope with a broken wax seal. "Miss Natalie," he said, his voice carrying across the silent tent. "Your grandmother asked me to give you this tonight. Once the marriage was official, I think it's time." He handed her the letter. Natalie, still trembling, but now fueled by a strange, electric energy, unfolded the paper and read it aloud. The guests listened, gasping at the final clause. The cat sanctuary, the genuine character test. When Natalie finished, she looked up at Daniel. A single, disbelieving laugh escaped her lips. It was not a happy sound. "You married me for $14 million, she said. "And you just lost it in front of everyone." The moment that voicemail played, you failed the test. You failed her. And you failed me. Daniel stumbled forward, grasping her wrist. "We can fix this. I love you." "I never touched Meredith, I swear." Natalie pulled her hand free. "Don't. You didn't just betray me. You betrayed a dying woman who opened her home to you, who shared her stories with you, who thought you were decent. But she knew. In the end, she knew." She turned to her father, who was already rising, his face a thundercloud of protective fury. "Daddy," Natalie said quietly, "could you please have someone escort this man off the property? And someone else, please tell the DJ to keep playing." The DJ, a nervous kid who had no idea what to do, started a slow, jazzy version of "I Will Survive." Laughter rippled through the crowd, shocked, relieved, admiring. Natalie walked back to the dance floor, kicked off her heels, and held out a hand to her mother. "Mom, dance with me." And so, while Daniel was led away by two ex-football player cousins, the bride danced barefoot under the fairy lights with the people who truly loved her. The grandmother's favorite cat, a fat orange tabby named Marmalade, who'd been smuggled into the venue by a sympathetic bridesmaid, watched from the cake table with golden eyes, as if he'd known the whole time. The fortune would go to the cat someday, perhaps. But that night, Natalie inherited something far more valuable: the unshakable knowledge that the sharpest love sometimes comes wrapped in a secret, and that a woman who spent her final days reading journals and stroking a purring cat had just saved her granddaughter from a lifetime of lies with a single, brilliant, posthumous checkmate. And somewhere, in a dusty old sanctuary full of rescued cats, a dozen felines curled up in their beds, entirely unaware that a scheming groom had just made them very, very rich.